So. Because I had walking such a street, I said, should I be one in the middle of town? Because those three out there, one of them in the town, is so far. Especially if kids are exporting their kids to the city. It's a tornado where the Russians are dropping bombs. So I kind of brought Patrick again, so that we probably need to look at that. She kind of.
We did an analysis of what areas covered.
Yeah,
and it
but
was,
like last night, I knew when my phone went off, I said to Kelly, okay, now listen hard. I think you can maybe try to.
Yeah, so the point of the outdoor siren is to alert people who are outside. It's
Right.
not meant to be heard inside.
Right, but I think the coverage that we have, for the money, for the safety, the coverage kind of.
That's something.
I mean, when I was in. Tuesday, all the fire department, all the locations to make sure it works.
Yeah. Let me start this really quick. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, so I mean, we're at a point now with everything that we're doing and all the processes and everything else. It's just kind of a bad idea to look at everything, and if that's something that, and I know the point is for that, but when you look at a lot of other communities that have more, whether inside or outside, it's about safety, and if you look at the price, isn't a lot of money, it's like $25,000, so why not? And especially if people like, on the inside, they're like, did I hear? What did I hear? What was that noise? Oh, I hear a man's voice. Is he in the backyard? No, that's the, and some of them are directional and some are articulate. So if they're only directional, that's not great. The ones, the new ones all spin, but if they're locked up.
It's 7 o'clock? Yeah, okay.
That's neither.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the village board meeting. It is Tuesday, July 16th. It is 7 o'clock. Deputy Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Trustee Orth?
Here.
Trustee Whitaker?
Here.
Trustee Fowler?
Here.
Trustee Mendrick?
Here.
Trustee Gallen?
Here.
Trustee Dengis?
Here. Thank you. At all of our public meetings, we open the floor to those who wish to address the village board. Anybody like to address the village board on any topic? Please approach. State your name for the record.
Thank you, of course. My name is Jason Scheibel. Last name is spelled Schaiele.
Thank you.
I'm here with my wife Kelly tonight. I just want to share with the board that last night and into this morning, my wife and I, for the second time in 3 weeks, and probably the 10th, 12th time in 11, 12 years, we're fighting water in our basement coming from the sanitary sewer. I know this isn't new to this board, but I just wanted to bring it up because just this week we were receiving information about a circle coming in, maybe a circle, a big construction project going into Half Road, and I look at money expenditures to do such a thing when we're not taking care of the sanitary sewer. It's something I'd like to bring to your attention. Also, I would like to bring up that I know there's a cost sharing program for doing overhead sewers and backflow prevention valves. I don't think that sharing cost has been reviewed in a few years. I don't know when the last time $5,000 was spent, but I asked for that.
Thank you.
Could you tell us where you live? I'm sorry, I don't know what particular.
No, sorry, 215 Latrobe Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Jason?
Yes.
Follow up with staff.
Yeah, who should I follow up?
This guy.
Village manager, thank you.
Patrick?
Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you, appreciate it.
Anyone else? Kathleen?
Saturday, we had a fatality in our neighborhood. A car came off of Eden's Expressway, crossed frontage, and hit, the trees. Luckily didn't, breach any of the homes there, but it was on fire. And that's a really scary thing. And I know that we've had the same thing happen up by the car dealerships. We've had it happen on the other side of frontage, between, Willow and Winnetka. But I'm gonna be selfish right now, I'm gonna concern myself with our side of the highway. When they put the extra length of the, exit to get off going east on Willow, I'm almost positive, and I mean, it was a long time ago, but they promised that they were gonna put a barrier up, a sound barrier up, in order to accommodate because of that extra length. It never happened. I don't think anybody ever talked about it or why it didn't happen. And I'm just wondering if you guys could shed some light on it. I know you won't be able to do it tonight, but if you could look into it and shed some light on it for us, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Kathy. We will. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Sue Kelly, I live at 1642 Orchard. We know that there's, I don't know the correct word, an ordinance or rule, about the length of grass allowed. And as I've been walking my dog every morning this summer, there's at least 2 properties where the grass and weeds are, I think it's 8 inches, that are over 8 inches. And I'm wondering, like, I'm walking my dog, I'm not like writing down addresses, but does somebody from the village patrol look for this, drive around, contact? One of them's an empty lot, on Lagoon, 1 block north of, Winnetka Road. One of them is on Winnetka Road. So, does somebody look for this? Should I call in?
I'll let the village manager respond, or Steve Gutierrez.
Yeah, we keep our eyes open as we're going around town. We don't patrol for that specifically. But as soon as somebody calls us, then we'll track down the addresses tomorrow. We'll give the homeowners a call, typically say, hey, were you aware, we have an 8-inch, high grass ordinance. And 99% of the time, the people are, we'll take care of it. And we'll follow up a little bit, kind of keep our eye on it for a little bit.
What is an empty lot? They took down a bunch of trees. My kids used to call them a haunted lot.
Yeah, if it's the one I'm talking about, then that we've talked to them. If it's a repeat offender, you're up for issuing a citation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Anyone else? Next on the agenda, the consent items. Approval on bills and disbursements for June 2024. I have a motion to approve the bills and disbursements from June 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Kathleen, can you give us a little background on this?
Sure. Okay, in the past, we had the bills and disbursements part of the consent agenda. So moving forward, we've changed the process and we're pulling that out and separating bills and disbursements to kind of highlight them, give more attention to them so they don't kind of get lost in the consent agenda. So it's separate. We're going to be just bringing those out as a separate item before the consent agenda every month going forward. So that's what we've done. And so in addition to the accounts payable, we've also added the payroll-related items, not the names or anything, but just the total for each payroll, as well as the check numbers. And that's really kind of an internal control thing, so we're paying attention to that we're using all the check numbers, there's no missing checks, so that's really kind of an internal control piece right there, listing all the checks. So for our report for the month of June, we had the village made payments of $1,457,600.98. About 60% of those payments were made for accounts payable, about $843,000. The remaining 40% were payroll-related expenses. There was 2 pay periods in the month of June, and that totaled $613,948. The village has, on average, about 92 employees. Of the 170 accounts payable disbursements and the check register that's provided, I highlighted 3 items. Going forward, we're going to highlight, some of the items that may be more, that we just kind of want to highlight and bring attention to. So I highlighted 3 items. The first one was on page 6. We purchased 2 speed display signs. The first one's already up, and it's on the 400 block of Central, and there's going to be a second one on the 200 block of Northfield that's going to be going up, that's not up yet. And there was 2 other items I highlighted on page 12 and 22, and those were sales tax rebates. On the bottom of the report, I listed just the check numbers, as I mentioned, and then there was 15 void checks, and that was due to checks that were put into the printer incorrectly. So again, we just want to make sure that we're accounting for all checks, that there's no missing checks, and that's just, again, an internal control item. So that will be our format going forward, and so hopefully that's just more transparency, more information, that we're just not blowing through that in the consent agenda, just giving you more information. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's just for the public, this is in the board packet as well, what she just, most of what she just talked about, included in the board packet. Any questions from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallon?
Yes.
Trustee Dungus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Consent items. Are there any items any board member would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, will the Deputy Clerk please read the consent agenda items into the record?
There are 4 items under the consent items. The first is the approval of minutes from the June 18, 2024 meeting. The second is the approval of a resolution approving the content and/or release of certain closed meeting minutes of the village board. The third is the approval of an ordinance declaring property surplus and authorizing the disposal thereof. And the fourth is the ratification of the execution of a customer order form with BS&A Software LLC for a new financial software system.
Thank you. May I have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved. Give consent.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board?
Yes, I'd just like to make a clarification or a correction to the minutes from the last board meeting. In the approval of the minutes for the meeting change, on page 4 of the minutes, line 5, it's talking about the subdivision of the property at 118 Dickens Road into 2 3.1 acre lots, and if I'm not mistaken, that should be reflected as 2 1.5 acre lots.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. That'll be noted. Any members of the public who would like to speak on any consent agenda item? Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallon?
Yes.
Trustee Dungus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Action items. May I have a motion to approve an ordinance amending various sections of the Village Code as it pertains to the use regulations for restaurants and food services?
So moved.
Second.
Steve, can you give us a little background on this?
Thank you, President Lingmus. Yeah, so just a little background first. This spring, the village board discussed how the special use requirement might be putting us at a competitive disadvantage as a possible barrier to attracting desirable businesses, such as full-service restaurants, to our commercial zoning districts. The village board, at the end of that discussion, the consensus was that the board would like to amend the code to loosen that up a bit for full-service restaurants in particular. And so the board tasked staff to draft amendments which would amend the code, the zoning code, to more align with the board's concerns with this requiring a special use for restaurants across the board in every single zoning district. So we did that. We presented the amendments to the Plan and Zoning Commission on July 1st, and the Plan and Zoning Commission recommended unanimously to approve the proposed amendments. They also suggested that the board study allowing restaurants in some capacity in the B2 service commercial district that runs along Northfield Road. These amendments are detailed in the draft ordinance that you have and in the background material. I'd be happy to walk you through those specific amendments if you'd like, and certainly can answer any questions that you might have. And with that,
I don't think it's necessary to go through it all again. I think we covered it last meeting, but any questions from the board on what Steve just said?
No, but I'd like to actually make a comment about the B2 service commercial along Northfield Road. And pertaining to other communities that we've been to, specifically Evanston has taken some of their industrial buildings and transformed them into specifically Double Clutch Brewery. And it's a real wise use of a tenant space that's not being occupied. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's what P&Z was kind of envisioning, a music venue or something like that. It could be kind of nice. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
I have a question. Sorry. So, assuming we approve this change, how will this change the way the village might communicate this, or what does it change other than, you know, we all know that we've made a change. So, Steve, does it change at all the way you do outreach? Is there anything we as a village need to produce to get the word out? You know, how do we get our version of Double Clutch Brewery in Northfield?
well, more immediately, what my plan was to reach out or send an email to the, particularly to the landlords or to the commercial property owners that we're familiar with and have contact information on, advising them of this change. I've actually been reporting to the Chamber of Commerce that these changes have been considered or were being considered. So I will report to them as well, and I would ask them to maybe push some information out through their network. And we certainly can. We can push. We have a list of existing businesses, you know, but they all obviously network, and it would be great for them to be aware of what we're doing here. And I think it's just a signal to them as well that we understand, particularly for restaurants, you know, the challenges they face and, you know, what a challenge it is to open a restaurant, and that we recognize that, and we're trying to do our best to accommodate these kinds of desirable uses. So that's what we had planned on doing, but we certainly can do some more outreach, and certainly as we get inquiries from potential businesses, we're talking to a new landlord now. He's got a lot of ideas. I'm going to make sure, obviously, he's going to be on that list so that he can impart on potential tenants, whether it's a bakery or a coffee shop or a restaurant, that the village wants to embrace them, and that the proof's in the pudding, so to speak. So
one of the last pieces, the director's team is working on assembling an email database for businesses, both businesses and landowners within the business district. And we're going to start working on an electronic newsletter targeted towards those groups. So think changes like this in the future, we can send right out and let those owners know, hey, there's a new opportunity here for you, so they're all aware of it.
I would also suggest that we put it in the village newsletter because, you know, we're the best advocates for why you should come here. So for residents to know that we've made this change, I think would be good. We do, you know, we have a fair number of developer types in the community too, so.
Would you also want to put something in the Record North Shore or Patch, just a PR blurb that we've made some changes, so it's out there a little more spread out? Just another thought.
All good thoughts. Anybody else? Any questions or comments from the public? Clerk, please call the, Steve, you?
Just if I, we're not prepared to provide the exact language because there's additional study that needs to be done with regard to Northfield Road. So I assume the board is amenable to us doing that work and then coming back to you at some point in the future.
Good point. Does everybody think that that's a good idea to address that? Yeah, let's pursue that. Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallon?
Yes.
Trustee Dungus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the action items, may I have a motion to approve an ordinance amending the 2024-25 village budget to add a new part-time police officer position and transfer funds?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. Kathleen, can you give us a little background on this?
Sure. Last month, Patrick discussed hiring, as a result of the staffing study for the police department, a new officer. And at the time, I believe he gave the information for a full year. We figured out the cost for 9 months for that officer, and we put together a budget amendment. The cost for the officer for 9 months with an August start date, wages and benefits, comes out to be $96,516. We didn't budget for that, so we're proposing a budget amendment for that amount. In addition, the other piece of the budget amendment is related to the American Rescue Plan. During COVID, the village received about $750,000 in funds, and that money was used for the new meters, the AMR meters. That project's complete. That fund has remaining $3,000 in it. So this amendment is to close out this fund and transfer the remaining $3,000 in it into the capital fund. And that's
Thank you, Kathleen. I have a question. We stipulated, those rescue funds had a very specific, that was stipulated by the federal government how they were used. Will that be, that be a footnote in our funds? How are we going to handle that? I'm just kind of, it's not going to just be part of the aggregate of funds. We need to be careful how we spend that $3,000.
Well, we actually, the whole project in itself was about $1 million. So we used the 750 plus the village's like 250 some. So kind of how it worked was we had like 750 in that fund, and then the other remaining came from like the water fund. Okay. And say we had the 3,000 still left in there, and we had like a bill come in for say 5,000. So instead of hitting the count that only had 3,000 in, we hit the count that had the remaining, and we continue to hit the other account. And that's how we still had the 3,000 in there. There just wasn't enough money to pay the other bills that were still coming in, and that's how we had the remaining 3,000.
So the bookkeeping all works out.
Yeah, we spent more. We spent the 750 plus.
Great.
So it's all the documents have been submitted to the government. All the reporting's done. The project's complete.
Thank you, Kathleen. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Yes, please.
Kathy Estabrook, 1620 Mount Pleasant. I just need some clarification. Is it a part-time police officer, or is it a full-time police officer who's only going to be here from August, through the fiscal year? I'm confused because you're calling it a part-time police officer.
Yeah, it actually is a full-time police officer. And the reason you're hearing just a portion of the amount is it's unlikely we'd be able to get somebody in that position until August or later. So we wanted to make sure that the fiscal year budget amendment was only for what we thought would be spent this year. No, definitely full-time position, and hopefully August or later we'll fill that in.
Okay, I understood that, but I heard part-time police officer, so I was a little, it seemed confusing.
Just a verbal error.
Any other questions from the public? Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Galvin?
Yes.
Trustee Dungus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 6, informational items. Does the board have any questions of any staff member on any of the informational items? Anything for Steve Gutierrez, Finance, Public Police, or any of the special projects? Hearing none, thank you. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Thanks, Greg.
We are adjourned.
Pretty quick. Yeah, not a problem. All right.
Where'd you come from?